Very shortly, you're going to need to start thinking about designing an application for this class. The application is going to be used to help you get from a disagree on your coding topics, as well as your diagrams, to strongly agree. And as a part of that, you're going to need to integrate all of the different technologies that you've been learning in this class together. So I'm creating this video to kind of help you start thinking about how you might do that. So I've created this architecture diagram of sorts to help you start thinking about how you might use the various technologies within your application. I want you to use what used to be called a client-server architecture, sometimes referred to as an n-tiered architecture today. And this will help you, hopefully this diagram will kind of help you to see how that all falls together. You start with an Android application that will make calls to a Tomcat application. This is where your servlet runs. And then the Tomcat application will make calls to a backend database. And so I've put on this diagram the elements or the technologies that you're going to be using throughout as you're building your application. So for instance, you're probably going to want to use HTTP to communicate between your Android application and the servlet application that sits in Tomcat. And the back and forth, or the data handling for that, could be used. You could use JSON for that. It's probably a good idea. You'll use MVC throughout. Of course, the view part of MVC would be on your Android application. The controller part of it would be within your servlet or within servlets. And the model is in a set of classes that interact with Hibernate. When you make calls to your database using Hibernate, Hibernate will return, especially in a one-to-many relationship, it will return a set of collection of objects, and then you can use those to, again, go back and forth with JSON. Application controller pattern also has a place within your Android application, and you can kind of start thinking about how you might use that. And then the last piece here is threading. And you might want to think about using threading on your Android application when it makes calls back to the servlet. That way, the whole application doesn't just stop while it's making those calls, but you can still use it in other ways. I've put JUnit on here because you're going to want to use JUnit to test all of this from front to back. So with that in mind, I hope that this helps you to think a little bit more about how you might design your application and where each of the pieces that we've been learning about fall in. And I might also just add to this that these technologies are used every day in software development shops throughout the world in the same way that you're learning them here. So what you're learning is very, very relevant. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't want to be a software developer, and that's fine. But what you're going to find is that regardless of what role you play in IT, you're going to have some understanding of this. For instance, some of you want to be network engineers or want to be systems administrators or the like. And setting up this type of an environment for your software development folks will be critical. And understanding how the pieces fit together will be very important. So regardless of what you're planning on doing, there is some relevance here for you. So I hope this has helped you to get a little bit more understanding of how the architecture will fit into this, your application.